Okay, dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is gonna be the Brilliant Slaughterer guide for today. We are using the same team I used in my May testing team as well as the Aris team. I can't remember if I tried this for Aris, but I don't think so. But we're first gonna look at Brilliant Slaughterer's skill set. He's able to decrease magic damage taken by 70% and also blinds on his basic attack. He has 2 AoE skills, one decreases buff duration by 2 turns similar to Furious Slayer, and also for his second skill he's also able to freeze and increase the damage we take by 70%. So for this case I'm using Phi. Phi is here to give freeze immunity and the rest are pretty standard. Aris is here for skill cooldown, Fenrir for lethal rate increase, and Yuri for crit rate increase and crit damage increase and debuffs. Okay. The reason why I'm using Fenrir and Phi and May here is to satisfy Dillo's criteria, which increases crit damage and damage dealt to enemies when there are 3 offensive allies on the field. So first things first is to cast Yuri's bottom skill to debuff and then also spam with May from there on, and nothing too complicated. Every time you use May, it's really nothing too difficult because there's nothing much that you need to be wary of, just that you want to be using Yuri's Awaken skill at a much later stage. Just keep that in mind. The reason for that is because May's HP is not low enough. As I've been mentioning in my previous 2 guild raid videos, if you haven't catched them, the idea is for you to reduce May's HP to a very low amount so that you can make the most out of Yuri's Awaken skills, which increases damage dealt to magic enemies. Okay, so you want to make sure that when May's health is really low, so it captures the effect of the Berserker Ring, increases her attack to an insane amount, and then use May's Awaken skill and maybe her bottom skill to do massive damage. So I do have the Fighter Soul in this case for increased damage on magic enemies. So that explains why my damage output here is definitely going to be higher than what you see in Shadow of Ambition and in Shadow of Ambition. The team idea is roughly the same, and Phi is really here for her freeze immunity only, and she also does increase offensive type allies physical attack by 30%. So it's not too bad, okay, the buff, but it's just 30%. If you use Cult here, you will definitely get a 40% buff, which is gonna be even better. But with that, you have to give your entire team freeze resist, of course. Although you may not need to give a Cult freeze resist, all you need to do is give Aris and give May freeze resist, and maybe even Fenrir for Yuri as well. Yeah, so Phi has the least use and is the most substitutable here. Okay, in case you guys don't have Phi or you think your Phi is not strong enough, you can use Cult, it's okay, which is almost the same team as what we have used for Shadow of Ambition. However, I think there's a problem with using Phi, and that is my damage output is not high enough. Okay, so I didn't manage to solo Brilliant Slaughterer in this team, but I managed to do that in the next team, which you guys will see. Okay, and I also did it in a much faster fashion. So just keep that in mind and stay tuned for the second team as well. Of course, always remember to take note that when Yuri's debuff runs out, remember to cast it again, otherwise you are gonna have a wasted turn of damage. And again, if you didn't watch my Shadow of Ambition video, I always like to say that when using May skills, I tend to use them from the bottom up so that the Exploit Vulnerability skill is closest to the Awaken skill and she can make the most out of the Exploit Vulnerability buff. Okay, and if you care to use, you can also use Fenrir's top skill before her Awaken skill, which will serve to increase crit and lethal damage as well, and also apply the block nullification on Brilliant Slaughterer so that your damage is going to be more consistent and high. As for Aris and Phi, there's really nothing much. As in this case, the same strategy and same problem applies, whereby your May is not going to take too much damage, okay, because Brilliant Slaughterer does deal magic damage and she's going to be immune to magic damage for the first 6 turns. right? So she's not gonna take too much damage, even from his AoEs, even with the damage received increase. Although that does help to serve the purpose of her taking more damage, right? But just take note that you also need to bear in mind your front line. If your front line is too weak, then the damage received increased debuff is just gonna harm you, and you may need a healer. Although I don't see a space for a healer in an offensive kind of comp. So yeah, just take note of that. Don't clean the debuff, of course, because the damage received increased debuff, is actually very good for May, because May needs to take damage. Otherwise, she's really not gonna take much damage, and your damage output is gonna be extremely low. A while ago, you did see her hit about 7 million on the Awaken skill, so you can only imagine the amount that can scale up as her HP falls. Of course, for it to be consistent, you really will want the block rate nullification from Fenrir. And something I haven't been mentioning is the guild buffs that I used. Okay, so for May teams, because she has innate crit rate increase, you don't have to have the crit rate guild buff. And in fact, if you have Fenrir, you don't even need the lethal guild buff as well. So you can focus your guild buffs on physical attack, lethal damage, crit damage, increased awakening gauge, and skill cooldown. Or if you like, you can remove the crit damage one and decrease block rate of enemies instead, so that you get more consistent damage. But in this case, you have Fenrir, so you don't really need the decreased block rate one. If you are using other teams, like maybe my second team, which doesn't use Fenrir, then you could consider using the decreased block rate to allow yourself to have more consistent damage, because the blocking from the bosses are extremely annoying, and it really causes your entire output to be lowered. So you will also feel that using May as a DPS, you are going to get significantly faster runs, which is not surprising because you have so many skills from May, and overall the damage output is definitely going to be much larger than Velika, right, in a shorter period of time. So she's hitting 7.7 million here, and even on her effect attack, she does 4 million already, so that is insanely high. I do have the Storm set and Blessing set, of course, so this will give you a rough idea of her potential. Even on the bottom skill, she hits 5.6 million, so that is really a very big amount that she can do against Brilliant Slaughterer. But then again, I do attribute that to the Fighter Soul, again, the traits, which are gonna be very key in guild rate. Yeah, so unfortunately, as I said, I didn't feel that I had enough damage. So even with, you see these numbers, but it's just not high enough to KO, to solo the boss. And there come a point whereby the damage I take is just too much for my May, and I cannot heal, unfortunately, so I have really no choice. Over here, I did use the debuff removal to get rid of the debuff, because it's actually gonna harm my May at some point. At this point, unfortunately, she still died even without the debuff, so yeah, I could have sneaked in another skill and get more damage off, but yeah. So I guess, towards a certain point in the battle, the debuff is actually gonna harm you. Initially, it'll be okay because the damage output from the dragon is not that high, so it's even more pertinent that you have the debuff. But after that, when he scales his damage, the debuff is just gonna harm you. For my May's gear, in this case, I've given her double speed, and double Revel HP and standard PvE jewel skill cooldown instead of increased awakening gauge. As I said in the Shadow of Ambition video, you can give increased awakening gauge because you're using Aris, and Aris already reduces the cooldown of your entire team and May significantly, so you can go with increased awakening gauge. And of course you want freeze resist here. No, you don't need freeze resist, you need increased damage on magic and increase crit and lethal if you want on magic, or you can go with the decreased magic reduction, increased damage on enemies with magic reduction. Yeah, okay, that's also a very good limited trait to have. And of course you want to give her accessories like Berserker Ring and increased damage dealt on offensive enemies. For Yuri, standard HP, defensive jewels and Willful Ring. For 5, same thing, HP, defensive jewels and Willful Ring. The weapons don't matter here, I just didn't want to unequip them from PvP. Okay, as with Fenrir as well, standard HP armor, defensive jewels, and if you want Willful Ring, but here I gave him Berserker Ring so that he heals a lot more if his HP falls to a very low amount, but clearly that wasn't the case. Okay, finally for Aris, double counter, status effect resist rate, because you really don't want her to get blinded or frozen. Okay, and lifesteal if possible. I don't think lifesteal matters that much. Yeah, PvE, defense, jewels, and Willful Ring. So this is the next team. It's also almost the same team as what I use in Shadow of Ambition, and that is to use Live Streamer Scoot and Eileen instead. As I said, Live Streamer Scoot, Eileen, and Yuri are kind of the best trio to use on a May team because of the lethal damage increase, the crit damage increase, as well as the physical attack of 50%. So with this setup, you can basically expect May's damage output to be even higher. Okay, even on the exploit vulnerability scale, she already does 1.6 million. So we're gonna look at the awaken skill. Yeah, it already does 6.5 million. If you remember earlier how long we took to just hit 7 million, it took almost half the battle. So you can already feel that there's a very huge increase in terms of multipliers on using this team, right? And that is why it is possible to actually solo the dragon with this team. Same goes with Shadow of Ambition. Unfortunately for that case, I didn't have the Fighter's Soul. So in this case, I finally do have the Fighter's Soul that increases damage on magic enemies, and yeah, it really makes a huge difference in terms of your damage output. Do bear in mind that it's a grade 4 Fighter's Soul, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get it. It won't be like you need a year to get it. I think if you play for about 6 to 7 months, you should be able to have that. Of course, one thing here, since we don't have 5, you do need to give freeze resist to almost all your heroes. In my case, I remember I gave it to May and then I gave it to Aris, okay, because these two are most important. You realize that the other 3 are not so important. Okay, Yuri is important, but Eileen not important. Live Streamer School not important. So they don't need to have freeze resist. Okay, so just keep that in mind before you actually use your topaz to change their traits. So that you can actually save on 2 heroes in this team. You can already feel the speed and the damage output from May is just huge. She even did 8 million just now, remember? That was without Yuri's buff, and that is only with crit and lethal damage boost, and with physical attack of additional 20% from 5. So yeah, this team is definitely the team you will want to be using. Now if you don't have Live Streamer's Gold, it's okay, because you can always use Fenrir. Actually, Aris also can buff lethal damage. Yeah, so you can also use a block rate reducer. Regent Lave will also do fine here. Okay, so that you get extreme control and extreme precise damage, consistent damage, because you realize that I do get blocked even though with I have very high damage, I do get blocked. So if you really want consistent damage, you can actually sub Regenerate in instead of a Life Streamer Scoop. I think that would be a good choice in this case. But of course, you know, if you have Life Streamer Scoop and you want more consistent damage, it's also possible. Remember that Life Streamer Scoop's Awakened skill is able to reduce the block rate of the enemy by 80% or something like that, or 50% for 8 turns, so it's pretty significant, and you can do that in order for your Mei to land consistent damage. Again, I got blocked, so it's really unfortunate. The same idea goes, okay? Remember to use Yuri's Awakened skill only once turn 30 hits, because that is when the dragon will do more damage. And you know, if you're very confident that, you know, judging from the damage you've been dealing for the past 20 turns, you're very confident that once Mei hits a certain amount of HP, you can use the Yuri Awakened skill, then do it, and good luck with the damage. Because that's what I did. I think sometime when the dragon hit about 30% to 20% HP left, I think that's what I did. I just used Yuri's Awakened skill to get it done even faster. $9 million. 9 million damage, guys. The damage from Mei is really insane. But again, Fighter Soul is really key as well, just to highlight, because without Fighter Soul I really had difficulty. For, as you can see from the previous teams and also from the 2 other dragons, I see the potential that they can be soloed, but I just can't. Unfortunately for this case, I don't have my Storm set completed, so you can see that her effect attack damage is actually really low. Yeah, and unfortunate. So here my Yuri's buff is gonna run out the next turn, and I should be getting ready to cast it, but I think I only realized that at a very late point. Thankfully I made it in time. As you can see, I was frantically clicking around because I couldn't get the skill rotation right. Yeah, so at this point, you can see that only 18 million left. I'm pretty sure my Mei can deal 18 million with 1 Awakened skill, or maybe just two skills. So that is why I decided to use Yuri's Awakened skill at that point, and then, you know, also just to be very safe in case he blocks me, I decided to reduce his block rate at this point as well. I see that he's still on cooldown, so it shouldn't be too bad of a thing, and then I decided that okay, it's time to use Mei's Awakened skill, and hopefully it can kill. It does 11 million, cannot kill, but I'm pretty sure now with her bottom skill ready, she can kill unless she gets slapped to death. And she does survive on very low HP, which, you know, further will boost my damage output. So there we go. A solo run for Brilliant Slaughterer. So for Mei's gear, I have on lethal, okay, and double lethal. In fact, you can give speed and lethal is also fine. Double lethal because I really want to secure the lethal. I forgot that Aris actually boosts lethal rate. So yeah, I gave her double lethal and I tried to boost the lethal too high. Physical attack increase, crit and lethal damage, and increase awakening gauge. Like I said, you can go for this. And then the rest of the traits are the same, as well as the accessory. For Yuri, HP armor, defensive jewels, willful ring, I've said this so many times. I'm sure you guys will remember the chant by now. For Eileen, same thing, HP armor, defensive jewels, and willful ring. Freeze resist is just a bonus, you can do without it. Life Streamer Scope, HP armor, defensive jewels, willful ring. Freeze resist is good if you want to heal with her, but I don't see the need to. So that's something you can play around with if you have Life Streamer Scope. Aris here, double counter build. Okay, you can give her weapons for more lifesteal if need be. Willful Ring and defensive jewels as well. Blind resist as well as freeze resist. Very important now that we don't have 5. Okay, so I've come to the end of this guide. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy or found it helpful, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Big shout out to my channel members DMD Phoenix, the Mocha Cafe and Yamaki for the support. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much and see you!